It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege of interviewing the Southwestern Pirates head women's soccer coach, Coach Linda Hamilton. How are you doing today?
Good, Brandon. How are you?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you want to get started in coaching in college women's soccer?
Well, I wasn't actually sure that that was the career path, but I fortunately was surrounded by a lot of really talented people at a young age when I was playing. And it was during my college career that my head coach, Anson Dorrance, suggested that I start going and getting into the USSF, the United States Soccer Federation coaching licensing. And I remember the conversation because I looked at him. I'm like, Anson, I'm a junior in college, and he's like, who cares? You should start doing it. So I took the B course while I was in college, and then you have to wait a year. And I took the A course, and by the time I'd graduated, I'd finished my A license. And um, I think at that point you're kind of a player and you're in this world, but in my day, I wasn't getting paid to play because we were the pioneer generation. So you tried to find opportunities to work that would pay you while allowing you to still play and compete as a post-college player. And then coaching was a perfect fit for that. So I don't want to say it was my always lifelong dream, but it was always a dream to be a part of soccer for life. So I think that was one way that I never really considered to sort of bridge that gap.
As a player, what was that experience like going to NC State and playing and going to Carolina?
Well, especially back then, right? It doesn't seem like a big deal today. Everybody's in the portal, everybody transfers, and you're a little young. But do you remember in my time of playing college, there was no transferring. You weren't allowed. If you transferred as a college athlete, it didn't matter in conference, out of conference, you had to sit a year. So I guess that sort of sets the stage. And for me, yeah, it was a business decision. The coach at NC State wasn't really furthering my growth and development, and UNC was right down the road and had a lot of my teammates from the national team that had graduated that were still creating a very competitive environment. So it really was much more about a business decision, quite frankly, to choose a career or choose a path at this point that was going to be able to allow me to still train and play beyond the collegiate game. And so that's what I did. Although there were some very exciting moments. We had to play NC State at NC State while I returned as a senior on UNC's team. So there were not nice signs about me in the fans, and the NC State swimmers were pretty brutal. But I mean, that's the nature of sports, right? I never felt in fear of anything. There were some pretty funny things being said about me. And, you're on a new team now. So the UNC girls did a good job at trying to help keep my emotions in check and recognize it's just a job at hand and get it done. But yeah, it was some fun moments, definitely.
How was that feeling like getting to put on that Carolina blue and representing UNC?
Yeah, it was really something special. I mean, I would be lying if I didn't say that was always a hope of mine, even as a young player coming up. I had torn my ACL just going into my junior year, and Anson stopped recruiting me at that point because I had torn my ACL. And in those days, if you tore your ACL, it was kind of like a death wish. So I chose NC State, and I beat him while I was at NC State to win the first conference championship. But obviously for me, it was a really cool, special moment growing up as a young player. UNC was certainly a pinnacle. And It's a cool feeling to represent a school like that at a time where they really were the pinnacle and the best of the best. So very special feeling. Obviously, I was teammates with some of those players on the national team, so that helped. But we all knew each other. We had all grown up playing together because in those days, it was a much smaller community.
As a player, what was that experience like getting to play with those national team players like Mia Hamm?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all made it. We made it the same time. I was a 17-year-old and she was a 15-year-old. So I think for us, it was a little bit surreal, a little bit like, yeah, we're there. I don't think the magnitude of the moment really hit us as 17 and 18-year-olds doing that. Because it had always been a dream and a goal. So having that opportunity just felt like it was part of the plan, and sustaining it, I think, was more the challenge, where once you got there, you wanted to stay. So you were trying to do what you needed to do to keep yourself there.
While with UNC, what was that experience like competing for a national championship?
Yeah, I mean, it was great. I mean, and make no mistake, at NC State, we lost in the NCAA finals to UNC when I was at NC State. So certainly other teams you can play for that also get to compete for a national championship. I think for me, the culmination of not just competing in the national championship, but winning it felt like a chapter closing in a book. It would have felt a little unfinished, I think, had I never been able to win a national championship. So I felt like that was a great moment. I'm not, I say this because obviously I was a current national team player. Mia was and Lily was when we were playing in my senior year. Um, but I'm not sure it was the strongest team of that time frame that Anson had developed, right? So I think too, it was a challenge. It wasn't a gimme. We had lost a game earlier in the season. And so it was again that exciting time where you felt like you could make a difference in something.
What was that experience like competing for US and getting to represent US?
Yeah, I mean that's something, Brandon, that's just a sort of take your breath away moment, and you're putting your hand over your heart, and you've got the US soccer crest, and you've got, you know, 80,000 people in the stands, and you're singing the national anthem, and you kind of look around and you're like, wow, I'm here, So just a pinnacle moment of a career that I think, I think as young athletes, we all want to represent our country. Olympics, in the case of soccer, World Cup, and Olympics now, but really World Cup is kind of the pinnacle. So being able to put on that US jersey to represent my country was something that it didn't matter if it was in a World Cup game or even a friendly, it never lost its luster and shine. It was always a moment of special significance that you knew that not everybody gets to do that. So here's another chance you get to do it. So it's just really special.
After your playing career, what was it like coming to Old Dominion and starting that women's soccer program?
I will say initially a little bit difficult. I think I was balancing what I was as a player, and now that sort of chapter's done, and the kind of coach I wanted to be, but I wasn't there yet. It was so new. So I think I was definitely, it was joyful for sure, but I definitely wasn't as good a coach then as I've become over time, which is, I guess, pretty typical. But I think for me initially, though, being a coach was hard because I still wanted to be a player, and my body just was telling me that time has passed. And so um, having that initial growth, starting a program was kind of exciting. But wasn't used to losing a lot. So that was also a new place to learn how to help inspire your team, even if things aren't going our way. So,
What were some of your biggest accomplishments as a head coach starting a program at Old Dominion?
well, I think first just getting enough players to generate the first ever team that played for Old Dominion and represented. I didn't, it was still some unfinished business because what started to happen in 1993 was US Soccer actually said they were going to put us in residency for the national teams to get prepared for the World Cup. Between us, a little late, US Soccer, because they ignored us for 2 years after we won and we did nothing. So that's my side note. US Soccer thought, oh, the women won, so they'll win again. That's why we weren't as prepared for 95. And that's, I think, why we lost, because we didn't start doing things together as a team till about a year, 12 months before. Anyway, they were coming back and saying they were going to put us in residency. And I was in my second year at Old Dominion. So it was one of those difficult decisions, but I figured I only had a limited time to be a player. So stepping away, but really proud of the fact that I was able to put the first team out there to represent Old Dominion in their first ever women's game. And they've done well. I keep up with them. They've done really well. They're competing regularly. So it's kind of fun to know that I was at the forefront of that.
What was that experience like for you being the assistant coach for Hofstra?
That was lovely. I mean, for me, I had been out of the soccer world after I retired from the game, back to the original lesson I learned that getting right into coaching right away was a little hard. So I'd been out of the game, the collegiate game, for a little while and decided I wanted to return to it. I had been a director of development for a couple of nonprofits, and I think time had passed and now I missed soccer and was ready to rejoin. So my logic was, although I knew I'm capable to be a head coach, but I'd been out of the collegiate market for a little while. So I thought it would be best to start back as an assistant. Um, Certainly living in New York was a new experience for this Southern girl. Got really good at knowing how to navigate the subway and Long Island Railroad. So it was a good segue back into the collegiate game. I'm super appreciative of Simon Ridioff, who was the head coach at Hofstra then and still is now, but in my first, he'd only been the head coach for a year or two when I got there. So it was great. Oh, those girls were great, good connections. I felt good about the college game, and it guess gave me that confidence to realize that the game hadn't changed that much, that I could go back to being a head coach. So when that opportunity opened up at University of North Florida, I went ahead and applied and was fortunate enough to get that job, which again, that Hofstra stint allowed me to have that confidence to feel like the game hasn't changed that much and I can still go in and as a head coach and be successful.
What was that feeling like when you did go back to being a head coach and coming to North Florida?
Yeah, I mean, you just start feeling a little pressure. You got to get the right assistants, you got to get the right players, looking at the opportunity. But I was excited. I felt North Florida had a lot of positive aspects to sell, and it's in a really talented state. So, you know, you've got a lot of talent to recruit from just in your own state, regardless of you can go elsewhere too. But having good talent in your own state is a bonus for any coach that has that. So exciting to have a chance. And I was at North Florida when they were transitioning from D1, sorry, from D2 to D1. So they had been Division II when I got hired. It was their, I think I took them for the last 3 years of their transition to being D1, which meant we couldn't make our conference tournament during that time, even if we qualified for it as we transitioned.
As a head coach, what was that transition like going from division to switching to a new division?
Yeah, for me, it wasn't a big deal because when I coached, by the time I got there, they're treated as D1. They just have those restrictions. So we fall under the Division I window. I never coached North Florida while they were D2. So it wasn't a big transition at all. It was much more about the current players and the kinds of players you needed to get to be able to compete as a Division I school versus a Division II school.
How has your previous 2 stops as head coach helped you to where you are?
Yeah, I think you just continue to grow, right? You're in the field, you gain confidence, you learn along the way some things that work well, some things that didn't work well. Um, I learned quickly upon my arrival initially as a head coach. I was trying to run the team the way I was used to being run as a national team player. They don't quite translate. So I had things to learn about, oh, okay, maybe I need to have the same principles, but maybe not quite the same standards or some of that. So it's always a constant education along the way. And I think those opportunities gave me a chance to really decide the kind of coaching I want to do. And the world, the Division I world has changed drastically today than even when I was coaching in it. So I think those jobs gave me the grounding sense to know whatever job I want to take next, I'm going to be choosing it based on my choices, not based on what the job has to offer. So I think that's sort of gave me the confidence and some advice from a dear friend, Jill Ellis, who said, "You like coaching still. Coaching in college now is at D3. D1, you must win or you get fired. D2, it's just weird territory." And D3, because there's no athletic scholarships, what I do appreciate is my players show up every single day and choose to compete rather than they're being incentivized by scholarship to compete.
What was that feeling like coming to Southwestern Pirates and being their next head coach?
Yeah, it was exciting. I was excited to get a chance to coach. I've got multiple kids that have graduated from my program that are now currently in med school or law school or doing that. So I was excited to have the chance to work with such really talented, smart kids that are choosing the school Southwestern because they know they want to be a professional in something other than soccer, but they're not quite ready to give up that competitiveness that soccer gives them. So it was really a win-win across the board. I believe in what Southwestern and the education gives you. I believe in how it sets you up for success. I'll brag a little bit. In 2023, we had 100% acceptance rate for our kids that applied to med school. Our career center and professional development center is number 2 in the country, not number 2 among D3 schools. This is a comparison among D1, D2, D3. Our career services center is number 2 in the whole country. So there's some kind of cool little niches that Southwestern has that I feel fortunate to be able to sell that. And the kids that are coming to play for us are dedicated players, but also, like I said, they know that they want to do something other than go pro in soccer. And it's my job to foster both of those passions for them.
What does a typical game day look like for you as a head coach versus for your players?
Well, I could give you even yesterday. We had a game yesterday, so we had a couple of recruits on campus as well. Game time was 7:30. So for me, I woke up, I watched a little more film of the TLU team, the last game we played them, and then met the recruits at 1:30, visited with them. They took a tour, and then some of our players met them after their tour so that the kids can hang out with the current players and get a feel. And then we meet for our pregame talk at about 6:15 and kick TLU's butt at about 7:30, and then home to load film and start it all over the next day.
Can you talk about the culture that you've started to build for the women's soccer program?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a positive culture. I really emphasize to my players that I want it to be a fostering of goodwill and positive vibes for each other, that we need to hold each other and ourselves accountable, but we also need to support each other and keep it real positive and build a good team chemistry, because I believe 100% that positive team chemistry allows you to win more games than probably you should. And so it's something that our kids are embrace and they're proud of, and they help each other along, and they foster a very competitive but positive environment for each other.
For you, what are some of the things that you do to prepare for game day, and what was that feeling like stepping onto that field for the first time?
For me, game day, obviously, I try to watch film on the opponent, obviously watch film on us to work on the areas we need to work on, to let the team know of any areas that are of special importance for the opponent. Maybe they have a special free kick that they do or something, to try to make sure. But I think overall, my job on game day is to help make sure my team is as prepared as they can be for anything that gets thrown at them. And then honestly, game day, it's a little bit easier because the kids have the job to do. They still have to go out and perform. So it's a matter of making sure I have prepared us in practice as best we can leading up to it. And then, game day, really trying to reemphasize to them we've worked really hard, put all that into play, and have a lot of fun. I mean, because that's what it's really about.
Who are some of the teams that you coach against and play against?
Trinity University is a big one, super talented. They win a lot. Last night we played TLU, which is Texas Lutheran. St. Thomas out of Houston. This year we flew to California and played Cal Lu and Whittier. Occidental from California came here and played us. Moving conferences next year, we'll play schools like Rhodes and Berry College and Oglethorpe out of Atlanta, to Sewanee in Tennessee, to Center College and near Louisville, I guess. I'm not even sure where it is. So right now in our current conference, which is the SCAC, or the Southern Collegiate Athletic Conference, it includes the Trinity, Texas Lutheran, McMurray, Concordia, St. Thomas, Centenary, Ozarks. The new conference we're moving into next year, which is called the SAA, or Southern Athletic Association, contains schools like Rhodes in Memphis, or Sewanee in Tennessee, or Murrayville in Tennessee. Trinity's still going to be there, so the two of us are leaving the current conference we're in to join that SAA. But the SAA will expand us geographically a little further. Most of the schools we play currently are in the state of Texas.
What is that home game atmosphere like when teams like Trinity comes to home versus going to Texas Lutheran?
Yeah, we're fortunate. I mean, we had about 900 to 1,500 people that come to our games. Our other sports do a really good job of supporting us. Last night was fun because I think it was also fall break, so people didn't have a whole lot, but they were back on campus. So, but our home game right now, knock on wood, we're undefeated at home this season. Our home environment, it does make a difference. I mean, it's a huge help to us at home for sure than on the road. We have one on the road this year, but the added bonus of all that support at home really does help the girls feel great about it.
What does that recruitment process look like for those prospective student athletes looking to play collegiate women's soccer?
Yeah, for me, you got to have the full package. You got to have good grades to be able to get into school. It's a tough school academically, so we need to make sure that you have the right foundation to be able to be successful at the academics that will challenge you at Southwestern. But we start finding players as early as their freshman year in high school. Now, they can't apply till much later, but we start getting to know them, starting watching them play. If they email us, we email them back, but we'll watch them for the 2 to 3 years, freshman year, sophomore year, get them on campus to come on a visit so they can get a feel of what campus is like, meet the team so they get a feel what the team is like. So that process, it's usually a couple of year long process for us. I won't speak for everybody. That's how we do it at Southwestern, because I think Southwestern is a fabulous school, but it isn't a school for everybody. It's not. So I think we try to do this give and take to make sure it's a good school, both sides of the coin.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing those prospective student athletes fall in love with the campus and the soccer facility?
That part's really fun. It's just fun. I know it's when you find the right kid, it's a really good fit. And so when they see it and they choose it, what's really fun actually though is seeing them over the course of 4 years. I don't have a lot of kids transfer out. I don't have a lot of kids leave Southwestern. I might have some that decide to stop playing soccer after their sophomore year or junior year, but that makes a lot of sense at D3 when maybe they're getting into more of their academics or having an internship. Maybe they're not playing as much as they would like. But I don't have a lot of attrition on those kinds of things. So it's really fun to watch them choose this school and then watch them graduate and be really happy with the choice still 4 years later.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing those freshmen put on that Southwestern jersey for the first time?
It's fun. It's exciting. I think it's really fun when you see them play in their first minutes. They're so nervous. They're so nervous. But it's exciting to see because that's our future. So I love seeing that year after year because that's who we build around for the next year's recruiting.
What is that like getting to see those seniors putting on that jersey for the last time representing Southwestern?
Always makes me sad. Obviously sad in a good way, but it's hard, right? Every year I get new kids, but every year I lose kids that I'm very attached to. So much like a teacher, right? I guess in their case, though, it's not usually a 4 year commitment. I think for me, it's always with mixed emotions. The last game, and we haven't actually gotten to win our very last game, right? The one that does that wins the national championship. If you win your very last game, you're the national champion. Otherwise, everyone else ends their season on a loss, typically. So I think for me, it's a combination of joy and excitement for them, but when it's potentially their last game, certainly try not to show it, but certainly feel a wave of sadness that, you get used to seeing them every single day or whatever. And so it's always excitement and joy, but always a little bit of sadness that I certainly miss them. Every year when I graduate, I miss them year after year, that group, whatever group graduates.
What is that like seeing them achieve those first big milestones in their careers versus their last big milestones?
Yeah, once they're gone, the sadness stops, which is nice, and it's always pure joy. But watching them get accepted to the med school they want, or watching them get their first job. One of my seniors last year came to our game a couple of weeks ago, and she just got her job. She was excited. She'll be in Fort Worth. So for me, it's always watching their success with pure joy at the end. I've got a kid that works for Austin FC, which is kind of fun, and I've got some that are doing some coaching and then others doing nothing related to soccer whatsoever, or they're finishing in med school or those things. So super proud of the legacy of our players that go on and graduate and have great success in the careers they choose. It's a very fulfilling, joyous thing to see them. It's like they're expanded their wings and there they go.
How's that like as a head coach getting to see them going into the NWSL or even into college coaching after their playing career?
For a player to leave college but go into the NWSL,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean it's a huge jump. I think at D3 we don't really have that opportunity, but obviously I've been in that arena. You start looking at the players that are top notch in college on the women's side, and there's a lot. They're really talented. The top 25 women's college D1 teams are fabulous with some real special players. But you know the math, you know the statistics of who makes it in the pros. It's a 1%er. You're in the 1% club, maybe a 2% club. Just because you're top in college doesn't necessarily deem that you're success. What I love about today's world, though, unlike in my day, where you didn't have any opportunities. I love that in today's world, it's not just the NWSL, which is, again, one of the top women's leagues, and the fact that it's expanding and has more opportunities. All of that is great. But there's so many other opportunities across the world. All of the European countries now have women's professional leagues. So the opportunities are broad. I think for players that I watch go into that, obviously we have some attachment to the United States. So I think a lot of our American players would rather stay in the American League, right? So they get to maybe a new city, but it's still US. But I still think it's great. The number of opportunities now for young women to go play professional, get their skills set, get their games going. And then some do it by choice. A Lindsey Horan, for example, or even a Corbin Albert, they certainly could have been anywhere in the NWSL, even at the age Corbin went over to Paris Saint-Germain. But they chose that because that's development similar to our own, well, a little different because on our men's side they probably have to more so than on the women's side. But it's an exciting time, and those players have to continue to be at the pinnacle of their games, not just against collegiate players, but beyond. Their games have to keep evolving so they can be successful in that next level of professional league, because there is a difference. You can't just step right off a college field and think you're good enough to be there, because you're not. The game's too fast, too physical. You have to have some growth moments to see it out.
How is it like getting to see those players going into college coaching after their playing career?
I love it. It's great. I was just talking to former national team player, buddy of mine, Stephanie Cox, that is coaching at D3 up in the North Pacific Northwest. I think she's at Puget Sound. Anyway, I didn't know she was coaching, but she actually played a team. I needed a scouting report, and she sort of found her way to the Division 3. I think it's great because I think women players need women role models, and respectfully, this sport is so male dominated across the board. So for me, when my players choose to go into coaching, I'm very proud when former teammates or national teammates of the club we all get to belong to, whether I played with them or not, get to do that. I think it's a special thing because I feel that we serve as role models about the kind of careers women can have in these sports.
What are some of your future plans for the program moving forward?
Well, my only plan is I want one day for us to actually win on that very last game and be a national champion. That's what I want for our team.
What advice would you give those incoming freshmen entering their first year of college soccer?
What?
What advice would you give those incoming freshmen entering their first year?
Yeah, come in, be fit, be strong, be confident. And confident is this magical elixir that sometimes you have, sometimes you don't. But I would like them to come in fit and ready and belief in themselves.
What advice would you give those college juniors transitioning into being seniors and leading the program?
Don't waste a minute. It goes real fast. So enjoy every minute that you get to participate, in spite of the things you think you don't like. Enjoy them, because the moment they're gone, you're going to miss them.
What advice would you give those college seniors that have aspirations of playing professional soccer?
I think you've got to be humble and you've got to outwork everybody. You've got to just decide that your work rate and your work ethic can set you apart, because everybody's talented at the next level. What's going to set you apart, I think, will be your attitude and your work rate and your effort. And you've got to believe in yourself too. When a coach tells you you're not good enough, that's one coach, one time in one game. You go to other coaches, other places, but if you lose your confidence and belief because of one action or one moment, it'll be very hard to recover that. So just try to keep encouraging them to believe in themselves. They're there for a reason. And you've got to find the right fit for you. It might not be every team is the right fit. I do think there are different fits for different players, and you've got to work hard to find your fit without losing what makes you a special player.
What advice would you give those players looking to get into coaching after their playing career?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the love of the game. So find the right organization to work for where you feel you can grow as a coach, but also offer assistance and give help within the club that your value is two ways on that. And But I really think it's about the kinds of people you surround yourself with. So make sure it's a club you believe in so you can be your best.
What advice would you give those head coaches looking to build their own program and build their own legacy?
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to be true to yourself. You've got to have your vision and build to your vision. And you can't, similar to, as I've said to the players, you can't have self-doubt among what you're trying to do because it causes confusion to your team. So you've got to have a very clear vision that you can portray to your team for them to be able to be successful.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you on social media along with the program?
Yeah, Southwestern Pirates. We have Instagram, women's soccer, Instagram. I'm pretty sure I have my own, but I'm not great at doing much with anything. So, but our games are free at home at Southwestern University. It's a beautiful little campus in Georgetown. So you can find us on all the social media pages through Southwestern Women's Soccer, Facebook, Instagram. I'm sure there's a TikTok in there somewhere. And then, hopefully if anybody's local in the area and they want free entertainment, look up our schedule. And it's a beautiful little campus anyway. So we'd love to have the local support for sure.
Thank you again, Coach Linda Hamilton, for your interview and best of luck in your future at Southwestern Pirates.
Thanks, Brandon.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon. You can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Linda, for your interview and best of luck in your future.
Thank you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.